Hello and welcome to the B&H virtual event space. Today we've got Monica Sigmon to talk about how portraits and their photographers impact the subject's self-esteem. Welcome back, Monica.
Hello, Fred. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Well, just before she gets started, thanks again to Sony for hosting this, and anyone watching, please feel free to enter your questions in the chat throughout. I know that your presentations always have a whole lot of information, so I'm going to use this as my cue to disappear into the background. Monica, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Hey, everybody. I'm going to pull up my keynote here. So let's share screen. And Fred, you can just let me know if that worked. You should be seeing the logo now.
Totally see the logo.
Excellent. Okay. And then Fred, I have a hard time looking at the chat, so feel free to hop in if somebody has a question, just interrupt me. But whoops, here we go. Okay, so super excited today because this is a new program and I am kind of presenting it in its entirety for the first time today. I did an abbreviated version of this a month ago for a different group, and it was really well received and it really made me think. And so I've expanded on it because I think it's a really, really important topic for us to talk about. And while it may be obvious, I think there are nuances that I can share that might help somebody. If it helps one person, then it was worth it, right? So I'm being much more cognizant of what we can do, particularly for children. Most of this program will be kind of assuming that the subject is a child. However, it does apply to all of our subjects. So hopefully you'll get some good nuggets today. Alrighty, so this is who we are. If you haven't seen one of our programs before, I'm not going to go into the whole deep dive, but this is my husband, Michael Taylor, and our two dogs, Lucy and Muppet. This is our family portrait that currently hangs on over our fireplace. And that's how you can see the work or contact me on Instagram. If you do have a question that you want to DM me, use the Monica Sigmon, not the Sigmon Taylor, because I'm really, really bad at that one. But I can do my best to get back to you more quickly on the personal one. We do have a retail studio in Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm not going to go into all of that, but you can see more of the work at this website. So, all right. Let's see here. I think, Fred, I'm going to start with a video, but I think I need to stop and reshare to get the audio settings right. So hang on just a second, everybody. I'm going to stop and then I'm going to share again. And I'm going to share sound and optimize for video clip. Okay. Seeing the logo again?
Indeed.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so I think the best way to, and some of you guys have seen this video because it's super important to us, so so we use it a little bit, but it's also on the homepage of our website if you want to watch it again. But I think it sets the tone perfectly for what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to let the video play and then we'll come back on the other side.
The three most important words that you could ever tell someone are, I see you. It's because when you tell someone you see them, it's like you're acknowledging their existence. You are acknowledging their fortitude. And that's what Sigmon Taylor does. They see you. You know, for a while, photography kind of fell into this lull. And, you know, because technology evolves, right? So it was almost like anybody could do it. Anyone could take a picture and put filters on and do some cool little technological thing, but there was life that was lost in that process. When you think back to how photography was done, not taking pictures, but photography, how it was created. It's an art form. That's who they are. They are artists. It's like when you go to a museum and you see a Rembrandt, and it's you can feel the emotion of the person. You can feel their soul. The lighting just dances across their eyes, and their eyes tunnel down to the soul. That's what you get when you come. You get a relationship. It's not just about we're going to come at this time and we show up and everybody's in their places on their marks and snap, we're done. It's about what have you been through that has gotten you to you. And that's who we want. We want your you. And it's not just about who you look like, right? Identity is more than that. Portrait is more than that. It's more than what I look like, but it's about who I am. It's my beauty, not just my image. It's not my reflection, right? This is the cool part. Think about it like this. Out of all the 8 billion people on the planet, you are the only person who cannot look at you. Everything you see is a picture or reflection, some mirror image. You're the only person that can't look directly at you until you come to Sigmon Taylor Photography. They do more than take your picture. They allow us to actually see ourselves.
Okay, so that sets the tone for what I want to talk about today, because that is really our philosophy here at the studio. And I think it's more important now than ever before, right? Like the world is getting crazier and people are so much more aggressive and nasty on social media, and everybody hides behind their computers and tries to tear people down. And so I think that the more fast-paced the world becomes, the more important it is for us to just slow down and take time and, like Clayton said in the video, see people in front of us. So when I photograph people and Michael photographs people, what our goal is to allow the subjects in front of us to see themselves the way the people who love them see them, right? So instead of concentrating on, what they might not like about themselves, or they're older, or they're heavier, or they have wrinkles, or anything that they don't like about themselves, I just want to be able to flip the table and show them what the people who love them see, because they don't see any of that, right? We don't see that in the people we love. So that's our goal with our sessions. So whether you are a low volume studio like us or a high volume studio, I actually gave this part of this program to a school photographers convention last month. So they are super high volume. The principles remain the same, right? So the first thing that we have to consider is the setting. And so when we're working with our subjects, that's up to us. The setting is something we create. That is on us to create an environment in which our subjects can relax and feel comfortable, and then we can get the expressions that we want, right? So that's not a chance thing. That's us taking control of our session. The next thing that we have to think about is relationship. And again, that's something in our control. So we can decide how that relationship, sorry, I'm clicking the wrong thing here. We can decide how that relationship starts and continues through the session. And it's that interaction. It's, are you rushing? Are you slowing down? Are you taking time? Are you listening? Are you asking questions? Everybody wants to be asked about themselves. Everybody wants to talk about themselves, right? So instead of, and you guys have heard me say this before, instead of you at the camera maybe being nervous, or thinking about like your own, oh gosh, I hope I get this right, or is the lighting right, or not knowing your gear, anything like that. All of those things take away from your opportunity to make the person in front of you feel amazing. So we have to build that rapport very quickly and put them at ease very, very quickly, and build that relationship so that we can get the expressions that we want. The other thing that is a variable for all of us is time. So if you're a low volume studio like us, we've got lots of time. If you are a high volume studio or a school photographer, you guys have to accomplish the same things that we do, but in a much shorter amount of time. So that's something that, that we need to consider, and that could vary across all of our studios. But there's some things that stay the same no matter what business model you have. The first thing is we have to have some level of personal skills. We have to like people. We have to be able to build that trust quickly. We have to be engaging. We have to get out of our own head and really make the session about the person in front of us. We all are documenting important moments, significant moments in people's lives. So oftentimes people are calling us if it's an anniversary, or they have a newborn, or they're just getting married, or these big significant life events, right? Like those are the things that we are privileged to document. And all of those things contribute to this individual's or this family's legacy. And if you're a volume shooter, that doesn't change, because again, you have to accomplish the same thing, but in a shorter amount of time. And so I think what many of us forget, and I'm guilty of it too, when we get in a busy day and we have 3 appointments and then a session, and our mind is kind of someplace else. And we have to be really careful that we're not going into automatic mode, and we're not just kind of taking that session for granted and not slowing down and realizing that this may be our 5th session this week or this day, whatever, but this is most likely the only time this year, or maybe every couple of years, that the person in front of us is being photographed. So while it might be our 5th session, this is their only session. And so we have to have respect for that. And again, just turn all of our attention and time to them, because this is what they will have to remember. And we all need to know what we're doing, right? So in order to create this environment in which the magic can happen, in which our subjects can relax and we can get these great expressions, we're relaxed. That means we have to know what we're doing. We have to know our gear inside and out. We have to know our studio environment, or wherever it is that we're shooting. We have to be really comfortable with that. We have to have skill sets that we know how to use, like flattering people, knowing which way to turn their light to the face, which way to turn their face to the light. All of those things we have to know, so that we're not thinking about those things when that subject is in front of us. Anything that we're thinking about that is not them is cheating them and their experience, and not allowing you to do the work that you know you can do. So those things have to be locked and loaded. So that's one of the reasons why we love shooting with Sony, because the cameras are so intuitive to us. I don't have to think about it, and I'm never worried about the gear. We use Elechrome lights, and I just never am worried about something not working. I have that really dialed in, so all of my attention can be on the person in front of us. For me. And then details are important. So I know when I photographed weddings, one of the things I would always do if somebody was nervous or we're doing a big group shot, I would always walk over and just like kind of pick a piece of lint off of their coat and or jacket or dress or whatever. And most of the time it was invisible. It was just me going over and doing something that would reassure them that I have their best interest at heart, that I'm paying attention, that I want them to look great. Just knowing that we're looking at those details helps them have more confidence in us. It helps them have the ability to just relax and let go a little bit. So those small adjustments can make a big difference in not only their attitude and their confidence, but in our final portraits. If there really is something that we need to tweak, a wrinkle or hair in front of the shoulder when it's supposed to be behind the shoulder, or any of those things, it just puts them at ease and allows us to create the best portrait possible for them, because that's what we want. We don't need people to not look like themselves or over retouch people to death or anything like that. We want it to be an authentic portrait, but we want it to be the best portrait of them that we can create. We want them to look at these portraits and feel great, feel amazing. And then the other thing that we all have to think about is that really the portraits that we're creating serve as a mirror. So there's some part of us in all of those portraits, and the mood and the attitude that we bring into that session will be reflected back to us in those portraits. So if somebody comes in and they're nervous or they're stiff, or for children, if they're scared or they're grumpy, that's not on them. Our job is to create the best portrait possible. So we have to be able to handle that and switch their gears and put them in a better mood or help them feel better. And maybe that means that we were coming in it more quiet because we were nervous, and they interpreted that as we weren't in a good mood. So again, another reason to know your gear, get set up early so that you don't have those anxieties, those points of anxiety. The biggest thing for me is when I feel rushed or I'm running late, then I get a little uptight, and I can hear Michael laughing in the other room. So, but I get really anxious, and then I know, like, I don't hide my emotions really well. And so I've got to really concentrate on, don't let that come across to the client. Don't let that child feel my anxiety or stress, because they can sense that. And so we have to really pay attention to what we're doing there. The most important thing that I want to talk about is that we all have the same superpower, right? We all have the ability, the power to change the way people see themselves, to change the way that people feel about themselves. We can do that. That's amazing. There are very few other professions that can do that as impactfully as we can. So I'm sure we all have stories about a time that we had a photo taken of us or a portrait taken of us, and we didn't like the way that it was shot. We didn't like the way that we looked. I remember my high school senior portrait at the school. They're just moving us through super quickly. And I went to school a long time ago. So back then it was like we all, took the summer, we got our tans, we got the pearl necklace for the cape portrait. And it was just so exciting. It was something that we were all looking forward to. And we were counting down the minutes to have our best possible yearbook photo. And I remember that the guy was in a hurry, and I guess I had a piece of hair that was kind of sticking out, and all he had to do was just reach in and fix it, but he didn't. And at that time, you didn't see your portraits until the yearbook came out. So that yearbook came out, and I saw that portrait, and I was so embarrassed. And again, it wasn't a huge deal. Like, other people wouldn't have thought it was as big of a deal, but I still, 30 some years later, 35 years later, remember how that felt. And I remember that portrait and how embarrassed I was. And so what we take for granted, because we're doing every day, is, again, that might be this person's only portrait, or the portrait that they reflect on for that time of their life, right? So senior portrait, did they like it? Did they feel good in that session? Did we allow them to be the best version of themselves? Did we allow them to have a great time? This is our superpower. We really, really can affect, positively or negatively, how somebody feels after they see the portraits that we've created of them. So my purpose today is showing you that no matter the length of the encounter, no matter how much time we get to spend with that person, we can profoundly impact their self-esteem, particularly children. And we all have that very crucial role to play. So Michael and I say often we believe in the power of a portrait. By that, we mean we know, we've read the studies that show that children who see their family portraits on the wall feel better about themselves. They feel safer, and they feel that their family has a greater sense of permanence because that family portrait, not just the children's portrait, but the family portrait is on the wall hanging in their home. We know that's important. I think it's more important today than ever before for the reasons that I started at the beginning of the call. Everything is in turmoil. Everybody's just struggling after COVID still. These kids, I mean, it's just been a really hard several years. And when children see a portrait of themselves in the home, they know that their parents or their family is proud of them, proud enough to display their portrait for all to see. That is powerful. And not everybody can come to us. We are a really boutique model, so we're very aware of that. But if you're a high volume studio or even a school photographer, wow, you have the power to impact so many children, so many opportunities to change the way these children feel about themselves. And that is huge. We never ever want to take those opportunities for granted. And we have to remember that everybody, just like that video said, everybody wants to be seen, right? So portraits don't only change the way that a person perceives themselves or a child perceives themselves, but it also can indicate to the rest of the world, the people around them, it can also convey a message to them also. So I pulled a couple of portraits that we all know very well, and just want to illustrate that when this portrait came out of Steve Jobs, this affected how people perceived him in the marketplace. That turtleneck, the hand on the chin, that portrait has become synonymous with Apple's innovation. And that's also the portrait that is used over and over every time they're referring to him in the news or in a tribute or memorial. This is that kind of iconic portrait of him that comes to our mind when we say his name. And that's our goal at the studio, is we want to create iconic portraits for every child, every family. We want to create those reference points, those touch points. When they think back to this age or this time in their life, we want to have that portrait for them. We want to be the ones to have made that portrait for them. I don't think that iconic portraits should be reserved just for celebrities. I think that everybody deserves that, and that and they should love how they look in that. This portrait, again, we've all seen it a million times, but this really captured his determination during World War II, and it became a symbol of British resolve. This was a very, very important portrait at the time. Here's another one that most of us recognize. And this portrait was really kind of her coming out resilient on the other side of everything. You know, this is epitomizing her as the people's princess, right? So this is a very common portrait that is referenced when her name is coming about, or we think about her, and we are so fond of her in this portrait. She's happy, and we're happy for her. And the last one I want to share is this, and this is by a friend of ours, Neil Leifer, who is also a Sony Artisan of Imagery. And he took this portrait, and this was the defining image that Muhammad Ali became the greatest. This is the portrait that did that for him. And so these portraits are not just images, they shape the way that we remember people, they shape the way we think about people, and even a single portrait can define that person's image for generations to come. So as photographers, we have this opportunity with every subject that sits in front of us, young, old, little, small, the short sessions, the long sessions. We have the opportunity, and we have the widest reach as our studio allows us. So we never, ever want to waste that opportunity, because again, we don't know what's going on in these little people's minds. They're nervous. They are oftentimes intimidated. They know if we're nervous. They can smell fear. So we have to control the situation, right? Create that environment that I was talking about where the magic can happen. And remember that these portraits become a part of the family history. In whatever way, shape, form that family is, this becomes a part of that history. So for some children, this may be the only professional portrait that they've ever had, or in recent years, or for a while longer. And this is a huge responsibility, because these portraits will be somehow in their home, no matter how small or how large, and that will indicate to them that they were important, that their family is proud of them, that they are valued. And so it's not as little as just, oh, we're just taking the 5-year portrait this year. It's not just that. It doesn't stop there. This has lasting implications. And the more we think about that, I think the better artists we can be. So I want to share with you some findings that I have discovered about the way that people feel when they like portraits of themselves that they see and when they don't. So we know that children who see a bad portrait of themselves immediately have an emotional response. They immediately feel embarrassed or ashamed. It can decrease their confidence, their self-esteem, even their worth, their self-perceived worth. And it can increase the anxiety they experience about the way that others are thinking of them. So, and again, this is for adults too. And all of those things are true, right? So I remember, like I said, that the story of the senior photo that I shared with you, I still remember that. And I was embarrassed, and I was looking at my friends' portraits and thinking they were so great, and I just didn't measure up. So it can also lead to increased negative self-talk. So especially for children, that can start a very dangerous precedent. And we are then reinforcing the insecurities that they already had. So again, it's not as simple as just creating a likeness of somebody. We have the power to change the way they see themselves. We don't want them to see an unflattering photo of themselves and that influence the way they perceive themselves because we didn't light it properly, or we didn't pose them properly, or we didn't take a few extra seconds to have them relax and give us that genuine smile, that genuine expression. And it can also, of course, lead to social anxiety. They can worry about getting their portrait done in the future. They can worry at next year's session. They can increase their fear of being judged based on their appearance. They can question their value. It can lead to body image issues. It can lead to unhealthy comparisons to their peers. And interestingly, when children see bad portraits of themselves, or portraits that they perceive to be bad of themselves, the way they don't like the way they look, these can become lasting lasting memories and have a lasting impact, in that in the future they don't want to be photographed again. And then that can translate to their families. When they have families, it's not going to be important to them to have their children photographed or their families photographed. And so just by this little ripple effect, it can actually affect generations to come. It can affect future generations and what they see or don't see about their own family history. It can affect low academic performance, and that's something we have to think about with school children also. I think I was supposed to click all of these slides here to show you those points. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, you're very welcome to. All right. Now let's move to the other side. When a child sees a portrait of themselves that they like, a good photo, then this also yields an immediate emotional response, but this time it's positive. They can be excited. They can feel more confident about their appearance. They take pride in the way they look. We did a session a month ago with 5 cousins. It was the grandparents and the grandchildren. And the cousins don't get together maybe once every couple of years because they live in different countries. And we did the whole group. And then at the end of the session, we did individual portraits of each child. And it was fascinating because, yes, the child that we photographed wanted to come see the images on the back of the camera and see how they looked. We're kind of used to kids wanting to do that. But what was so interesting was all the other cousins huddling around that camera at the same time and saying, "Oh my gosh, you're beautiful. You look so pretty. Oh my gosh, your hair. Oh, that's such a great smile." And they were loving on each other. They were excited. They were just building each other up. And that's the power of a portrait. Those children loved the way they looked, and they loved that positive reinforcement from their family members, and they stood taller and they had these huge smiles, and that's what we can do. It can enhance their self-image, as we know, and it can then avoid negative self-talk and maybe even promote positive self-talk, which is really, really important in children and tweens and teenagers. Then it can help them, as a result, feel more confident in social situations. They can be more themselves, and they are not as anxious about what other people think of them. It can contribute to body satisfaction and help counter negative images from all the media around us, social media, everything else. There's so much pressure on kids to look a certain way. And so when we can celebrate them as they are, that just is a great, great thing. And then the opposite of what I was speaking of before, the positive memory formations allow them then to enjoy the process of being photographed, understand the importance of being photographed. When they have families, they want their children to be photographed, and then all is right with the world because everybody is being photographed and everybody is creating a history that will be passed down to the future generations of their to their families. Okay, so let's keep going here and get to this part. Okay, so I want to talk about some actual practical tips that we can implement that no matter how short or long your session may be, things that we can keep in mind. So the first thing is, like I said, we want to create this environment in which the magic can happen. That's our job. So that means knowing our gear, knowing that everything's been checked. There's a new card in the camera. There's fresh batteries in the camera. There's some nearby. If you use a light meter, it's ready to go. All of those things that you might need in a session should be prepared ahead of time so you don't have to think about them. It'll help you feel better and be more relaxed, which will then translate to the child or the subject in front of you. So it will help you feel more confident, and it will then help them to know that they are in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing. And you need to be able to have that skill set, like we said, lighting, posing, being able to flatter people the best way that we can. and be able to handle something that might unexpectedly go wrong. Maybe the strobe isn't firing, maybe your remote dies, maybe your card is full. Any of those things, we need to know how to respond to those very quickly. And I think when photographers get most nervous, and if you've seen any of the webinars that we've done before, this will sound familiar to you because I say it every time, is when we are nervous and thinking about ourselves, we can't think about the person in front of us. Our brain can't process that at the same time. So my trick is always, if I'm nervous or I'm a little bit intimidated by maybe somebody's in front of me, or I'm scared because the child's a little bit tired and I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to photograph the baby or whatever, then I have to say, okay, I'm thinking about myself and my own anxieties, and what I really need to be doing is focusing on the person or the child in front of me. And by doing that, then we're asking questions, we're being curious. Children know if you're being sincere or not. Children know if you actually care. And on that note, I think that a big mistake that we make is when a small child comes into our studio, then we kind of like get down on their level and we talk really like in a high voice and, are you excited today? And, that you don't have to do that. They're just little people. Right? We want to relate to them. And that's often how I can get expressions like this, because I'm not trying to force something. And they know that I'm not trying to just, amp them up for a session because their mom has told them for the hour car ride that they have to smile. I can get these expressions because I really am curious and I'm talking to them like another human. And so I think that's a really, really important trick. So prepare mentally before your session, prepare for the impact that you're going to make. So I would say, before you walk into that set or before your client walks into the studio or shows up at your location, pause and think about the impact that you are about to have, positive or negative, right? If you're not paying attention. So pause and take that responsibility seriously and say, I have the power by the end of this session for when this person or this child or when this family leaves the studio or this session, they can feel better about themselves than the way they felt when they walked in the door. We want them to have a better day after seeing us than when they came in the door. And that trickles down to everybody at our studio, whether it's the UPS guy coming in, we want to make him feel better when he leaves the door. So that is so, so important, and it can get your mindset right. So again, you're not thinking about yourself and your own anxieties. You're really, really focusing on your job of making that person in front of you feel amazing. That's what we can do. So we got to build rapport quickly, use their names quickly and often so they know we're paying attention. They're not just another cog in the wheel. And offer genuine compliments. Everybody loves a compliment, right? So I'm always picking something when they get on set to compliment, whether it's their earrings or if it's a little girl, her dress, or whatever. Pick something that that you can speak to that tells them that you're paying attention. Use your body language and pay attention to things like eye contact. If you're constantly looking at the back of your camera and you're really quiet while you're doing that, what's your subject thinking? They're thinking that they did something wrong, and then they start getting nervous and they start feeling like, gosh, I'm not doing a good job of getting my picture taken, because they're not putting the onus on you, that they're putting on themselves. How many times have you heard somebody say, oh, I take terrible pictures? Right? Well, they're not taking the pictures. It's the photographer taking the pictures. So when somebody says that to me, I always say, you know what? You just haven't been photographed by the right person yet. You're beautiful, and they just haven't been able to show you that. So give me a chance. And it always works. So we have to let them know that the onus is not on them. Simple things like avoid being rushed, or distracted. Don't take a text message while you're shooting, or look at your phone, or spend too much time looking at the back of the camera. That's why I love shooting mirrorless too, because instead of looking at the back of the camera, I can just quickly review that image on the screen through the viewfinder, so they don't know that I'm looking at an image. And I can just kind of get my little check that way, my little visual check that way. Use encouraging words. So, especially with children, you are such a good listener, because those are the compliments that they have been taught. That's the praise that they want to hear at school, right? So it's not just, oh, you're so pretty, or you're so cute, or whatever. I try not to use those kinds of compliments, because it does, again, place emphasis on what they look like, and give that too much importance. So I try and use compliments like, you are so smart. I can't believe you figured that out on the first try. Nobody can figure that out. You are such a good listener. Oh my gosh. So I try and give them compliments that reference what they're capable of, instead of just what they look like. And be engaged, react when they do it well, or when they give you that great expression. Don't just say, okay, that's great, now let's do that. Like, be enthusiastic, give them that feedback, and be excited, because that will only help to make them more excited and feel confident, like they're doing the right thing. For as nervous as you may be in a session, they are 10 times more nervous, because again, they think that they're going to do something wrong. They haven't liked photos of themselves in the past. And now they're coming to this like professional portrait studio or professional photographer, and they're nervous. They don't want to screw it up. So super important. Be kind. It's so easy, and nobody thinks about this anymore. Just be kind. Take an extra few minutes. Listen to what's going on in their lives. If they're answering a question and they're kind of going on for a few minutes, don't get impatient or frustrated, or look at your watch or anything like that. Think about that. Wow, they must have needed to tell that to somebody. They must have not had somebody at home to share that with, or what have you. So take a breath, reassure them. We schedule a lot of time in between our sessions, because for me, feeling rushed is the #1 creativity killer. I don't want to feel rushed. I don't want my clients to feel rushed. We do one appointment at a time. And so I just make it very clear, the studio is yours. Nobody else is coming in. We're just going to take our time. We're going to relax. We're going to get it right. And always end on a high note. So thank them for coming in, thank them for being such good listeners, thank them for doing such a great job, and let them leave with a positive affirmation. Again, you did great. You were so awesome. You were such a good big brother. Thank you for your help. Any of those things. And if it's an adult, the same kind of thing. I love the outfit you chose. The color totally complements your skin. You did great. You did a great job. Just that little reassurance on the way out the door not only changes the way that they think about themselves and makes them feel proud, but it will shape the way they feel when they look at the portraits. When you either have them back in for the selection appointment or whatever, however you do that, they will feel differently, because you have already reassured them that they did a great job. They will go home in a great mood, feeling confident, because you have shown them that they did a great job. So, self-esteem, positive self-image, that has a ripple effect, because it can impact, for children, it can impact academic performance. It can impact how they interact with peers. It can impact their overall happiness, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when a child feels good about themselves, and they are happy, and they are positive, then they react in that way to the people around them. Right? So that is really, really important. If you have an unhappy child who doesn't feel great about themselves, or doesn't get the attention they need at home, those are often the ones that treat other people poorly. They don't either know how to do it different, or they are not inclined to. They think that's just I don't feel good, so you shouldn't feel good either. That's very, very normal. And so if we have the ability to impact the way that people see themselves, children especially see themselves, and they see how we're acting towards them, and they love the way they look, then they will carry themselves differently and be more kind to people around them. That is the power of what we do. So I want to just finish up here with a couple quick little stories, quick little anecdotes, I should say. So these are the granddaughters of one of my best friends. And when we did these, they were, I think, 7 or 8. And then the middle one was 5 or 6. And then the little one in the middle was, I think, 2.5, maybe 3. And these hang as individual portraits over the fireplace in her bedroom. And when I went and installed them, the grand girls were there. And so they came and made a big fuss about it. And then I left. And what Sandy told me later was they came in again and they looked, and the little one, the youngest one, kind of looked at it and wasn't, was like, okay, great, and went on to the next thing. The middle child looked and stayed for a minute and said, wow, those are really pretty. And then she went on to the next thing. But the oldest, that 7 or 8-year-old, she said, stood there and looked and looked and looked. It was totally quiet, just looked and looked at her portrait. And then she looked at her grandmother and said, can I sit up on the bed? And so she got up on the bed and then she said, will you sit here with me? And so my friend and the granddaughter sat on the bed, she said, for at least a half an hour. And this little girl looked at her portrait and finally turned to her grandmother and said, I am beautiful. And that is so amazing to me and to the grandmother. And that just shows the power of a portrait, right? She loves how she looks. She studied it for a long time and she loved it. And so, of course, she's going to carry herself differently and she will then treat people differently. This little girl wrote a Mother's Day card to her mom. She comes in probably once or twice a year. And she wrote a Mother's Day card to her mother, and it said, it was really brief. The first thing was thank you for, I don't know, whatever it was. And then the second thing was, and for taking me to get my pictures taken so I can be fancy and beautiful. That's what this little one associates with getting her portrait done. I couldn't ask for anything more than that. So, and the mom, of course, sent it to me and she's crying and I'm crying and it's just really powerful. And again, she's only 6 or 7. So that will impact her for the rest of her life. So my challenge to you as we wrap up here is, instead of just thinking of yourself as a photographer, right? When people ask what you do, oh, I'm a photographer. I don't think that gives us enough respect for what we actually do. And so I would love for you to start thinking, even if you are only doing it for yourself, maybe you write it down and keep it as a Post-it note on your computer or on your camera stand before you start a session. I would love for us to start thinking of ourselves as esteem architects, because that's what we are. We have the ability to shape a way a child sees themselves. We have the ability to make them feel great. We have the power to enable any person of any age to feel great about themselves or to feel not great about themselves. So we really are esteem architects. And I think that is so powerful. And if you can just keep that on a little note, like I said, by your camera or in your camera room or in your camera case, and look at that before every session, then I guarantee it will change not only how you enjoy your work and how you enjoy your sessions, but how your subjects see themselves and how they feel about themselves. So like I said, I think about 40 minutes ago, we believe in the power of a portrait. we have that opportunity each and every time somebody sits in front of us to change the way they feel, to let them know that we see them, to let them know that they are of value, and that will have an impact for generations to come. So, hopefully that gives you some ideas, maybe a new perspective. That is it for my keynote here. So Fred, do we have any questions today, or any thoughts or feedback or comments or anything?
Unfortunately, not yet. So anybody watching right now, please feel free to enter your thoughts or questions into the chat. In the meantime, I just wanted to say, listening to you, how a photographer, or excuse me, sorry, an esteem architect.
That's right. Good job.
Found,
I'm going to
yeah,
get
found
t-shirts made for us. Yeah.
esteem, and then on the back, architect.
Perfect. Perfect.
How they make someone feel is hugely important. That's something a person will carry with them for the long haul. That feeling can be something a person even falls back on in like tough, like when they're feeling down on themselves.
You know what? That's a really good insight. And that is something that I read too, that it can become a touch point. So especially for adolescents, when they're feeling awkward or unsure, like we all do at that age, that portrait can become that reference for them, that this is only temporary. I really am a beautiful person. Really, people like me. You know what I mean? And so it can combat some of those doubts that creep in and insecurities that creep in. Interestingly, when I flew through Las Vegas on my way to give this an abbreviated version of this talk, I was at the Delta Clear kiosk, and I started talking to the guy, and he was like, "What are you here for?" And I told him what I was speaking on, and he was like, "Oh my gosh," he was about my age, maybe a few years older, and he said, "I never got my senior photo taken." And I said, "Why?" And I said, "Not even for the school or the yearbook." And he said, "I was too embarrassed." He said, "We were poor. I didn't have a jacket and I didn't have a tie. And I was too embarrassed to do it. And to this day, I regret it." And now things are different, right? School photographers have, have backups for that. Like they have plans to handle those things. But again, just the power of that memory for him was so difficult, even all these years later. So yeah, it's a big deal what we do. And I think too that I joke about our generation, like we were raised by wolves, right? Like we can handle anything. Like we were kicked out of the house in the beginning of the day with our bikes and told to be home before dark, right? Like,
True. Yes.
right. That was our lives. We were raised by wolves. This generation is not just the generations below us, but like the generation that's in elementary now, right? And middle school now. They are different. They have so many things going on in their heads that they're worried about. I didn't worry about any of those things.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about how many extracurricular activities I had because I had 18 college applications to fill out. Like that wasn't how we did it then.
Yeah.
Life was simple.
Yeah,
And
the access to
now,
information is just like,
yeah.
it's like, oh, it's great that we have such quick access to it, but how does it really affect, like, especially like a young developing mind, right?
Yeah. And that constant onslaught of images and information, like you said, and it just leads into comparison, right? Oh, she has prettier hair than I do, or oh, he's smarter than I am, or oh, whatever the things are, it's constant comparison. And it's hard for parents and these kids that went through COVID and missed a couple years of school. That really did a number on them. We're going to see those impacts for a long time. We're going to see that for a long time because even just I photographed a dancer project during COVID, and seeing these dancers come in, the parents were talking to me about how they were depressed because they were used to performing on stages several times a year. And now you couldn't do that because we were in COVID and they were isolated. They weren't in dance class with their fellow dancers. And so they just have a lot. They deal with a lot, and their parents are dealing with a lot. And so they might not always get that kind word. And sometimes the reinforcement that we give them, or the sweet comment that we can give them, carries them through that day or that week or whatever. So,
or even, yeah, later down the line.
yep.
Like you said, I mean, we all have cameras in our phones at this point. We all take snaps and share them, but all of it, like it piles up and it gets lost in the phone gallery or social feed to time.
Well,
And
not only that, but selfies, you're like in the most like unflattering chin in your throat and you're trying to get back, and then you're shooting it with a 35 mil, like nobody looks good, right? Like
they're
it's
totally
not,
questionable about how a person will feel after that photo.
exactly.
Yeah.
And now the teenagers, they look great. They've got it mastered. But the moms and the people my age, we hate how we look in selfies because, well, I know how to do it because I'm a photographer, but mostly they don't like how they look. And those are the pictures that they have of themselves, or they give their camera to their husband to take something and he can't. Now, if they give their camera to their 12-year-old, they'll look amazing because they know how to do it. But yeah, so that's what they're seeing of themselves all the time. Oh, I didn't like my smile, or oh God, what am I doing? Oh, I blinked in that one. Like it's more important than ever what we do.
Yeah, it points out why a professional esteem architect knows what they're doing. You know, that, I mean, that brings me to prints too, because you know, a lot of people will have their phone, like I said, oh, that's cute, and then months later it's so far down in the gallery they'll never see it, or it's so far down the feed that they'll never see it.
You are speaking to my heart. Yes.
Yeah,
They've
so
got to be printed.
totally. I think, what is it? There was a study even on how prints affect a child's like literally their self-esteem. When
100%.
When it's a solo photo, they feel, you know, and also where you're hanging it. So as an esteem architect, you need to know how to capture the beauty, the grace of that child. But also you need to know where to put that picture, right? So
God, you are like speaking my love language right now. 100%. This is the most photographed generation, and they have no photographs. They have the least number of portraits that anybody has ever had because they're just staying in the phone. And the other thing along those lines is children who maybe they do have some even small prints of themselves around the house. Oftentimes, who's taking that? Mom. So who's not in those portraits? Mom. So what messaging is that sending to our children? Mom's not valuable. Mom's not important enough to be in the picture. Or even worse, mom's vocalizing why she doesn't want to be in the picture, whatever it is she doesn't like about herself, that she doesn't want to be in the picture. That's training these little minds. And moms don't realize that they're saying it. But that's training these little minds like, oh, if this, then that. I shouldn't want to be in pictures either. So it's all profound the way that it can shape little brains and little people and adults too.
Well, we do have a comment in the chat.
We stalled long enough to get a comment. I love it.
Well, no. Here, definitely love the title of Esteem Architect. Well,
okay, well, don't steal it yet because I'm still working on it. So
shirt's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, like you mentioned with the mom, you know, growing up, I remember walking up the stairs at different friends' houses, and right at the base of the stairs is that family photo. And not only is it a self-esteem sort of issue, but you know, you're like, oh, this is your whenever they walk by it every day. So this is my place in the universe. This is I'm the middle child. I'm the son. Yeah, this is where I can be safe. Totally.
Yes. You're very good at this. Maybe you should teach part two. But yeah, it does give them that grounding. And it does, like I said, one day that portrait is going to be seen by somebody generations forward, and they're going to look at that and say, that's where I come from. Those are my people. Like that was my grandparent. That was my, you know, whatever. So great grandparent. So, it's increasingly important, not only just with the way the world is, but with, to your point, how few portraits are being printed. And we sell wall portraits. That's what we specialize in. And it's not to say that bigger means they love their family more or anything like that, right? Everybody has different amounts of resources and that kind of thing. But we always try and get those individual portraits on the wall also, not just a portrait of like the three siblings, right? We really stress that importance of they should have a portrait of themselves in their room. This is important. This is a good time to do that. You know, not when they have their braces and they're feeling awkward or whatever, but like we should have this. We should have this in there. So I think that's really, really important. And yeah, I think that's important.
We have
End
another
of
question.
End of thought.
Another question came in. Do you find it difficult to use taken portraits as examples of your work publicly? Or put another way, are clients reluctant about you using the portraits?
Like, I guess they're talking about in a keynote like this, maybe?
Yeah, I guess so.
Presentation?
Or yeah, on your website. And
Oh, yeah. No,
social.
my clients love it. Love it. Now we get releases signed as part of their onboarding paperwork. And occasionally I'll have somebody say, what's this for? And I'll say, you know, our website or Instagram, or, you know, I teach a lot. Michael teaches a lot. You know, we like to show examples of our work, and they're fine. I've had probably, I can count on less than one hand, somebody say, I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to sign that. And I say, not a problem. Like they're in a divorce situation or they're just private. That's fine too. However, most of our clients, like I send, like when I'm doing a keynote, if somebody sends me pictures from the audience or whatever, I will send that to the client while their child is up on the screen and they go berserk. They're so proud. Right. And then they show it to their kids and they're like, look, Miss Monica did a thing in Las Vegas and you were on the screen. They're like, oh my gosh, should we tell them they're famous? And you know what I mean? Like they love it. If a client has a reservation, they will tell you. And we always get the model release signed. So I'm completely fine if somebody doesn't prefer to do that. Not a problem.
One other thought that I had while you were bringing up your new program.
Rambling.
Not rambling. Like I said, this is important. I worked as a photo assistant for a couple of family photographers.
Nice.
I also dealt with their admin, so I saw a lot of testimonials and reviews come through, and it was never that they had the best cameras or the best lighting setup. It was about how positive their experience was. The reviews weren't about how capable they were behind the camera, but how capable they were face to face.
You're exactly right. And the best compliment, the way you know a session went really well, is when the clients are thanking you before, like when the session is done and they haven't even seen the portraits yet. And they're like, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Like they haven't even seen the portraits yet. Like that tells you that you hit the mark. You hit the mark for sure. And I think we've not done a good job of I think there's a way to utilize testimonials in a better way that shows the effects of the portraits, not just the experience. But so our next step, now that I've been kind of working on this topic for a little bit, is like maybe phrasing some questions in a testimonial about, you know, how your child felt, or what did they say when they see their picture on the wall now, or something like that. I think will be much more effective testimonials than, oh, we had a great time. They were very patient with us, whatever. Like, okay, that's so nondescript anymore, right? The testimonials are so generic now. So I think that's a real opportunity for us to show. A friend of ours says we're not selling the art, we're selling the result of the art, We're selling the way people feel when they see the art. That's what we are in the market to sell. So, so I think there's a great opportunity in there to rework how we all approach our testimonials and show the result of the art.
Well, Monica, we're just 5 minutes past the time, which is totally
Gosh, that's
fine,
great.
right?
Are you kidding? For me, that's great. Normally it's Monica, stop talking.
Monica, hey. Well, so thank you. I think
Thank you.
this new program isn't a run-of-the-mill piece of content, and it digs a lot deeper into the esteem architect's role in someone's life.
I love
Not just,
it.
not just some hired hand.
That's
You're
right.
you're not just a photographer.
Right.
You're an esteem architect.
Yes. And you did
All
a
right.
great job, Fred. You were awesome.
Thanks. I'm getting there.
You were awesome.
I have a good role model as
The
well.
best.
Yeah.
The best. Yeah. But you did
All right.
great.
Thank you. Well, also, thanks to Sony for hosting this.
Oh my gosh. And you guys, I mean, these important topics being available to working photographers and for free is unheard of. And that doesn't happen without you guys investing in your customers and without Sony believing in the industry and enabling us to carve out time to do things like this. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Worth the price of admission.
Yeah, well, thanks.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you again. Monica, thank you again. Sony, thank you again. Team behind the scenes, thank you again. Derek, thank you for training me. All right. This has been another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Everyone have a great afternoon.
Bye.